And we are live. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Global Citizens. My name is Calvin. I'm the show's creator and I'm also its host. So for today, we actually have the privilege of having one of the person who inspired Global Citizens creation. He is an international speaker, one of the youngest recipient of the Certified Speaking Professional or the award. I think he's the youngest also. He's an entrepreneur. He is the creator of Future of Selling Academy and Charisma Academy. And he is an author who has written 4 books. His most notable creation is Unlocking Your Personal Charisma. But most importantly, I believe he is somebody who believe his greatest accomplishment is he's somebody who is known, loved, and respected. Please welcome Mr. Eric Feng. How are you, Omi? Welcome to the
Yo, hi
show.
Kelvin. How's things going in Jakarta?
I really wish I could say, oh, it's fantastic, but
It's everything
yeah.
okay in Indonesia? It's all good?
I mean, my home is okay. I mean, nobody is sick,
Ah,
but for one thing is, well, I actually plan to be in Singapore by this week, but
just
as we
come.
know,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think
test
there was
your
some
immune
news.
system, just come to Singapore and see how strong your immune system is.
I'm quite aware of it, but I've lived there for 15 years. My immune system is fine. Okay. All right. So if any one of you who are part of my networking journey from at least around 2018 to now, you all will definitely know who Eric is. Okay. He is one of the person who really break the mold for us Asians. It's because he is an international speaker who has been at least to 50 countries or more.
I kind of lost count, but I'm going after the Africa continent right now and also the South America continent. So I'm actually going to South America and Mexico. Mexico is still part of North America, actually. So
Yeah.
Mexico, South America, and also Africa this year. Then kind of
Okay.
complete all the 7 continents. Is that
Oh
seven
wow.
continents? I think.
Yeah, you're the only guy who can. I think you're the only person that I know that can say I've stepped on 7 continents. Because my father liked to say in the past, he has stepped on Sabang sampai Merauke, which is basically from the north end to the southern end of Indonesia.
I
So
see.
you surpassed that, man. Congratulations in advance. All right. So for those of you who are part of Eric's KLR community, or if you guys are somebody who know Eric through, if you are definitely in the financial advisor, and if you don't know him, you know there's something wrong with that. Okay. The questions for today
Hmm.
is actually will not be focusing on charisma. It's also not going to be have a focus on sales. So the reason why I actually this among Eric's question is actually the most fun I've actually created, but at the same time it's also actually the most difficult. The reason why is because I really don't want to touch on the areas that everybody would have known because it will be all over his social media. However, what I want to focus on now is actually Eric himself as the person. It's
Wow.
because I believe that
I'm
his
feeling
character.
nervous about that.
Don't worry, I'm gonna. Yeah, don't worry.
You know what
Yeah.
I did? Because Kelvin actually sent me a whole list of questions that he wanted to ask me, but I was just thinking to myself that I want it to be as candid as possible. So I don't want to be too prepared and then to give you kind of polished answers. So I'm actually very nervous about it. But let's go, man. Let's get started. So what's
No
your first
worries.
question?
All right. So the first question is actually it's based on a personal background of yours. So
Hmm.
it's not a secret actually. It's actually in fact in some of your social media, but I think it's rarely touched upon. So you've actually studied in the United States of America before. I believe
Yes.
it was in
Santa
Philadelphia.
Barbara, but Santa Barbara was more for an exchange program.
Okay.
But I spent about a year plus in Philadelphia. So I was studying UPenn. I was pursuing a minor in technopreneurship and obviously also working in a tech startup. So
Yeah.
that's part of my education in US.
Yeah. Okay, that's okay. It's actually not a secret, but it's rarely touched upon. So why I actually want to make this a very first question because I believe it is one of your earliest influence as an adult to actually travel outside of Singapore. So do
Hmm.
you feel that this actually affected you and this has influence in how you actually decided to pursue a speaking career?
Um, well, first of all, I think my very first overseas trip on my own,
Yeah.
without my parents, was in secondary 1, 13 years old.
Wow.
You must understand, I'm from 1982, right? So back then, there is no such thing as student exchange, and we're all very much like frogs in a well. So I remember when I was 13 years old, my principal one day in the assembly hall says that, hey, we're going on a science trip and a history trip. Science and history trip combined together. We're going to be going to Surabaya, which is in Indonesia. Yeah, to go out the Mount Bromo. And but all I could think about was, wow, I want to go. I mean, I was very scared, but I thought that it would be fun to actually go on a trip without my family. So I was actually the youngest person to qualify for that trip. I have no idea what's the criteria. All I remember was I just raised my hand, and for some lucky reason, I was selected, but I was the youngest. So everybody else who went for the trip were all 14, 15, and 16 years old. I was the only 2 of the 13 years old that actually went. So I was so nervous that on the first day of my trip, like my parents sent me to the airport, I actually spilled drinks on myself, and I have to change. So I was the only guy that was wearing different clothes from everybody else. Everybody was wearing their uniform, but I was the only one wearing home clothes because I spilled like coffee, or not coffee. I don't remember drinking coffee at 13. I was probably spilling something on myself. So you can imagine I was very, very nervous, yet very excited at the same time because I'm going on a trip so far away. Without my family. So I guess that trip maybe played a very big part in opening my mind, because I learned so much about Hinduism. I learned so much about surviving with my seniors, exploring the world, finding favor with the tour guide. And all of a sudden I realized that the world is way bigger than Yishun. I stay in Yishun back then, which is like a little small town in Singapore in the north. And because my whole entire life I was at Yishun and Ang Mo Kio, which is north of Singapore. And all of a sudden at 13 years old, you saw Indonesia. You know how big Indonesia is, right?
Yeah, I'm a citizen.
There were so many first time. It was my first time riding a horse. It was my first time climbing onto a volcano and smelling the sulfur. It was my first time playing poker cards. It was my first time on a plane without my family. And there were just many first times, and it's as exhilarating as a computer game. And I guess that kind of seeds get planted. And ever since then, the minute I got into my university in NUS, I told myself that I must get on an exchange program, right? It's the cheapest way to travel. And that's why I was in Santa Barbara during my second year of my university. And also after that, I realized there is a double degree that I can pursue, and that's in US again. And this time around, I was thinking to myself, I've been to West Coast, so I want to go to East Coast, and that's why I went. So I guess because of all those influence when I was very young, I realized that the world is a lot bigger. I was exposed to people of different cultures. I have a profound experience on the last day of my exchange program. So you just imagine, okay, my roommate is Italian, my housemate is a Hong Konger, which I don't like. Oh, wait, I better explain why I don't like him. Otherwise, people think I don't like Hong Kongers. Because he's a computer engineer and he likes to do programming. So his entire room was filled with servers. You know, servers? And it drones every single night. And the poor Turkey, he has a Turkish roommate, right? So the Turkish roommate could not sleep. And then thank God my Italian roommate is a lot nicer. So you just imagine, I have a Turkish roommate, I have an Italian roommate. I hang out with Hong Kong female friends a lot because they have television in their room, so I get to watch like Charm. Most of my friends are like French, Russians, Koreans. So imagine when you were only 20 years old, your friends are international. And then one day during our celebration, because I was leaving the following day, I was switching on my Fujitsu laptop, my very first laptop, and I played a song, as a Japanese song called "You Will Always Be the One I Love."
Utada Hikaru, was it?
Utada Hikaru, right? So I used to like that song a lot. And guess what? I thought my Japanese friends will be the only ones singing that song. And it turned out the entire party at my place, the Germans, the Italians, the French, the Canadians, and everyone started singing in unison to a song that I thought only people in Japan would have heard. That was the moment where I realized how connected we were. Profound experience. And ever since then, my worldview has never been Singapore, neither is my worldview Asia. My worldview is the globe, the world. That's why my Instagram handle is Eric Goes Global. Because my God, the world is an oyster, man. There's so much to explore. Great
Okay.
question. No one has ever asked me that question before.
Yep. Okay, for those of you who just tuned into this channel for the very first time, Global Citizens is a show whereby I hosted third culture kids, basically like myself, who grew up overseas, expatriates and nomads. Now, for Eric's case, however, Eric has never really fit all his three in a direct sense. However, due to the nature of him being an international speaker, he do has to do his work remotely, which is a nomadic style in a sense. And this is actually something that I know because I've helped him in some of his events. Every time he's in Indonesia, I actually met him because he actually mentioned he do encounter several issues whereby maybe some of the country's culture or maybe in fact some technology. I know, like for example, in Thailand, they don't really use social media as often, like for maybe an Instagram or so. So, okay, so regarding earlier, you mentioned you already went to West Coast, which is Santa Barbara,
Yeah.
California, right? Then you went to Philadelphia, which is in the East Coast. So, throughout my 29 episode, one thing that I know about East and West Coast is that they are two completely different worlds on their own. West Coast is something that really is actually the one that accepts us Asians a lot more. Reason
Really?
being is that the reason being is that I think it's because they say when our ancestors, when an Asian ancestor reach US, they are in the West Coast, so they just settle
Ah,
down in the West Coast. Whereas in the East Coast, it's more towards New York City. I think it's the only area that openly accepts an Asian. And Philadelphia has a very unique history. Actually, there's one part of
yes.
Philly called Melbourne, which is actually an area which has a lot of Indian-based population. And New York City and Philadelphia itself are two different parties because if you are much more well-to-do, you live in New York. If
Yeah.
you are much lesser, then you live in Philadelphia.
Really? But Philadelphia
Yeah,
is so beautiful.
yeah,
Well,
it is.
okay. So a couple of comments.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you'd be surprised to know that social media is really hot in Thailand. Do you
Oh,
know
okay.
that in 2019 there was a social media study, and the top three countries that has a higher social media usage, ranking right on number one is Philippines, and
Okay.
then Indonesia, and then Thailand.
Oh,
So I guess,
wow.
yeah, I guess
Okay.
maybe just because they don't use English a lot, maybe that's why we're not very exposed to them. But
Okay.
I do know that they're very active in Line. I know they're very active in Instagram, social media, Facebook. Just that they're probably using a lot more of the Thai language. That's why we can't relate. The point about is there a big difference between West Coast and East Coast? I I mean I was like imagine I was going there on 2006, right? 2006. So I think YouTube was already around, Facebook was
Yeah.
around. There was already some social media, even though I don't remember being very active on it.
I
Um,
think it was Friendster.
oh
Friendster.
yeah, I remember I was on Friendster. Yeah, but I don't see any difference. Maybe I haven't. Maybe because when I was in West Coast, I was only there for 3 months, so I don't hang out with a lot of Americans. I was hanging out with a lot of exchange students. But I remember when I was shopping in Santa Barbara, and that was a party town, by the way. I was just getting some clothes, and this lady came to me and said, "You look really good in this shirt." And I thought that she was actually selling clothes in that shop, but turned out that she was just a passerby. So it kind of left an impression that people in Santa Barbara, they're very friendly. They say they just say hi to bus drivers and they greet each other all the time. So that's my worldview of Santa Barbara. More laid back because I was studying in a beach town, so people are always on their cruises. I have my American friends who always have a picnic mat and an apple, and they will be reading their books and doing their stuff under a tree. So very laid back. So that's what I
Oh,
noticed when I was in UCSB, right? University of California.
but yeah.
Now, but when I was in Philadelphia, because I was studying in UPenn, I see because we have no beaches, so I don't see people on cruises. It seems to me that maybe because of the way the university is being structured, I see less of people picnic, right? Doing a lot of picnics. People study a lot harder. Again, I maybe because I took a class in Wharton, so maybe because it's business school. So I don't know if I can compare apple and oranges. But what I do know is that I was so I stood out like a sore thumb when I was in America, very much
Oh,
so.
okay.
For example, in Santa Barbara, I was shocked when people think that Singapore is part of China.
Oh my
I was
God.
shocked when I look at the news and to realize that their worldview is basically just America. So back then in 2006, most of their news are essentially just American-centric news. So when I tell them that I'm from Singapore, they will always say, "Oh, is that part of China?" When I say no, they were like, "Oh, are you like part of India?" All right.
It's
So
not
people
in
remember
Japan,
India
right?
and China, but not Singapore. So it was quite funny. And by the way, in California, we have this dish called Singapore noodles. And the best part is we don't serve that Singapore noodles in Singapore. And the only reason why that noodle is Singapore noodles is because it's very thin, So I guess people remember Singapore as a very small nation.
It's a bihun.
But then when I was in Philadelphia, my experience are a little bit different. In Philadelphia, because I was working in a startup environment, my boss is Chinese, right? He's a Malaysian actually. He's born in Malaysia, but he studies in US. And ever since then, he has started 6 startups that sold off about 4, I think. And and he's Chinese. So I don't see anybody going like, "Oh, you're Chinese, you're different." People are very embracing in Philadelphia, at least in the city that I lived in. So that's why I feel very much at home. I don't feel the distinction that Asians and Americans are very different. So yeah.
Okay. Earlier you mentioned regarding your mentor. Yeah, I've known some of your mentors actually. So this question is going to be quite important in a sense. First is that when are you going to shave your head bald?
When am I going to change my what?
When are you going to shave your head bald? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
My head bald. Oh,
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
I
kidding.
know why you asked that question. You want to
kidding.
tell them why you make that joke?
Okay, guys. So Eric liked to actually he always liked to credit his mentor heavily, and as a result, in all of his presentation, he will show photos of his mentors. Sorry, every single one of them are bald, which is why I asked him when is he going to shave his head bald. No, but it's just a joke. It's just a joke. It's just a joke.
Yeah, it's just a coincidence, I guess, or maybe for some mysterious reasons, your success as a speaker is indirectly proportional to the amount of strands of hair you have on your head.
Okay, I think because it shows, okay, your hair is bald, you're more experienced. Okay, we can pay you a lot more.
Do you know something? A lot of my confidence was actually built in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, two stories, quick stories. Number one is I said my boss is Asian, right? Malaysian. And he always tells me that, Eric, go out there and explore. Don't be the typical Singaporean that comes to a foreign country and hang out with other Singaporeans. Yeah. So he wanted me to hang out with people from Geneva. So I started working with people. My colleagues were from all around, not just in America. They're American, but they might not be Native Americans. So he has a huge influence to me in asking me to expand my social circle to the extent that he actually encouraged me to serve in a student group in Philadelphia. So I was actually I was the president of SPIN, which is Singapore Philadelphia Innovators Network. And the whole entire organization, this youth organization's purpose is to connect entrepreneurs from Philadelphia and Singapore in exchange. And I was actually running a student leadership group during that year. So I was exposed to the business community in Philadelphia. I had a chance to work with students from all around the world, actually. So that was damn good training for me. The second one was I joined Toastmasters. Toastmaster is an international public speaking organization. So you get to actually practice speaking skills. And I was always thinking that people in America, they are very eloquent, they're very confident. A lot of international speakers come from that country. So I told myself that when I'm in America, I'm going to join Toastmaster and I'm going to sign up to be in American chapter. Not an Asian chapter, but American chapter, so that I can build my confidence. And I tell you something, there were Asians there, but very, very good speakers were all Americans. And I got to learn from them how to speak with certainty and confidence and charisma, to the extent that I even took part in a competition. It's called a humorous contest. So there's one.
Is it the one where you're in Macau? It's actually one of your highest viewed video on YouTube. I think it's 9.2K or something.
Oh, no. So that one is a competition in Macau, in Asia. But I actually took part in an American one. There are many levels. There is the club level, which I came in first. And then I came in first for area. I came in first for division as well. So
Okay,
I was at
wow.
3 levels, but after that they found out that I'm actually not from I'm not from US, right? My membership is actually based in Singapore, so I actually could not go for my final competition. So
Oh,
I
that
was so
sucks.
disappointed. They actually brought me down to compete for the finals. And 30 minutes before, they say, I'm sorry, Eric, you cannot compete because we just found out that your membership is based in Singapore, not based in US. I was devastated because I had a very good speech, and the speech was about Singapore, right? I thought that it would be a great way to share with people more about us, right? That we're not just a small city, we're a lot more than that. We're not just a fine city that we find
And you're
every.
not part of China.
I was devastated. I was really devastated to the extent I actually asked the organizer. I said, "It's okay that I cannot compete, but could you please let me go on stage to deliver my speech so that I can
Okay.
enjoy seeing people laugh?" They say no.
Oh, that sucks.
No, it was very disappointing. But my confidence was really built through that 1 year because in my head I always think that I'm Chinese, so I'm probably not very good in speaking English, right?
Yeah.
But when I was there, I found my confidence, and the fact that I won a American-based competition gives me so much confidence. So whoever's watching this right now, if you really want to work on your public speaking skills, it's about stage time. It's about getting out there, speaking, creating videos if that's what you want to do, doing podcasts. Because the more times you speak, the better you get. Obviously, yes, you will not get good at the beginning. You're gonna be horrible. But it's a saying, right? The person that sweats the most in practice bleeds the least in battle. So if you don't start now, volunteering as an MC, you don't start now by doing some videos or podcasts or joining a Toastmaster club, then you're not gonna have any opportunity to work on your public speaking skills, and then you will always you will not stand out among the crowd. It'll be a
Indeed.
yeah.
Yeah, just to let you guys know, even after 30 episodes of this, I can still screw up once in a while. In fact, last week was because when I was interviewing my guest, it was actually, I was still mourning. At that time, Kobe Bryant just passed away. So at
Oh,
that
yeah,
time,
yeah.
it was still really hard for myself. In fact, two of my episodes, I can say, even though I did receive some compliments for it, I do say that it's not done well because I wasn't really focused at that time. So I
Mm,
can agree with that. All right, all
got
right. So I actually need to refer back to the question before I joke about your
it.
mentor.
We can always
Okay.
do like part 2, part 3, part 4. I mean, you're gonna be doing this for a
Yeah,
long time, right? Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So a lot of times, right, when people tend to say, "Oh, this is my mentor," is somebody who they found in a workplace, most likely, right, or maybe in a work attachment, like what you have done. So I believe it's really fortunate enough that you are able to speak with your boss, who is Malaysian Chinese, who has been living in Philadelphia for years, most likely. So as a result, when you pick the brains of your mentor, a lot of times is it might not be a person who inspired you to be a better version of yourself. So how do you stay who you are? Like the best part of you, the character that you feel is the best part of you, to keep that while at the same time you will need to apply what you learn from your mentor and etc.
um, my mentor actually came back to Singapore a couple of months ago, and I
Yeah,
finally meet his wife as well. And he reminded something I did that I totally forgot. But he said it was exactly because of that particular action
yeah.
that caught his attention among the hundreds of interns that he ever met. Until today, in his own words, he said that I'm still his number one intern. Right? We can like testify to that. He can testify to that. So, so what exactly did I did that captured his attention? And till today, it's been like more than 10 years. Every time he comes to Singapore, I'm on his top list to hang out with. And it's my hunger for learning that actually captured his attention. So this is what I've been taught to do, right? That I remember when I first met him, I asked him a question. I said, CH, what do I need to do in this 1 year at this job for you to say that I'm your best intern? I actually asked him that. And I do the same thing in university. I go to all my professors and I ask them, what does it take to get an A in your class? Because everybody's expectation of you is different, and you cannot perform to their expectation if you have no idea what the expectations are. Like in Wharton, for example, one of the ways to do well in Wharton is class participation. And I was very stressed because everybody just raised their hand. They were spamming, they were spamming their hands and just asking stupid questions. Because you know how the professor will rate you for class participation? He will go through the name list, and if he doesn't remember your face, he fails you. So the only way you can stand out is you better ask a lot of questions or you ask brilliant questions. So also stress. So maybe it's because of that training that if I have clarity about my leader's expectation, my followers' expectations of me, my team expectations of me, then I can perform and maybe even overperform. So that was the very first thing I did with my boss, right? He took me to an Asian restaurant and I asked him that question. I said, what can I do in this next 1 year for me to be your number one intern? And he gave me a whole list and I start taking down. And then after I finished taking down all the notes, I said, hey, CH, we still got about 30 minutes. Can I ask you a couple of questions? So I've already done some research about him. He's an awesome entrepreneur that has made a couple of $1 million, right? And he's a tech. He runs a lot of tech startup. Everybody worships him. So it's a waste if you meet someone famous and all you do is ask for autograph and photos. I can never understand this. Like when I meet someone famous, the last thing I would do is to ask for a photo or autograph and that's it, right? Yes, it helps in your branding, but no. If I get to meet people that I idolize, I would already have questions planned out for them, even if it's one question. So I always fantasize, right? If I get to meet this amazing person, this famous person, I will already be prepared with questions.
And create an article about them.
Yeah, because one of the things that I always learn is if you want to be successful in life, don't seek validation, seek education. So I go around with questions all the time with people that I admire. And I have a whole set of questions. And you know what I did? He reminded me. He said, Eric, it was amazing. You actually took out your recorder and you started recording all my answers. He said, it's the first time anybody ever do that at a lunch.
You did that?
I did that because I think it's precious. I traveled millions of kilometers to Philadelphia. I want to make sure I get the best learning as much as possible because the more you learn, the more you earn, right?
Yeah.
So that impresses him. And ever since then, he actually told me, Eric, let's meet up once a month. You prepare your questions. I will answer them. You update me your progress as a student leader and whatever that you're doing. And I'll coach you, I'll mentor you. And that mentorship has not ended. It's been 10 years. He's still my mentor.
Oh, wow.
So great question. So guys, this is how you stand out if you want to attract mentors in your life. You got to have an attitude open mind for learning. You got to be hungry for learning, and it's very attractive when you're hungry for learning, especially when you're in front of successful people, because successful people are hungry for learning too. They love learning so much that they're constantly humble with a growth mindset, and that's why they are constantly successful. So when they see that in you, it reminds them of themselves, and that's what attracts them to you.
Okay. I actually have two final questions. So the first one is actually a two-parter. Okay. So there are multiple sales guru, like for example, Grant Cardone, I think you emulated him also, Dan Lok.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of time.
Very similar style. He's
they have
two
completely different style actually.
Different style.
The thing is this. You see, a lot of times if you actually review their lessons, both of them really actually try to tell you is don't accept a no for an answer. You have to continue, keep on selling. If one thing that I know quite well about you is that a lot of your method is actually try to give value in the long run to somebody who is a potential customer. So this is actually a two-parter is that in your 10 years as an international speaker, okay, you've been exposed to different kind of cultures. You have different types of mentees from different countries. What actually has their personal traits that has actually you feel has been positively impacting you by emulating them or maybe from learning from them? And the second one is this: how important do you feel kindness is in order for somebody to succeed in today's society? It's because
okay.
Sorry. Yeah,
no, I hear you. So let's take the first question. The first question is, what kind of traits do in my mentees get me attracted to them, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing. Hunger for learning.
Okay.
That's the first one. And a service attitude. I think at the end of the day, you know, that yeah, you can make all the money you want, you can live in nice houses, and you should do that, you deserve it. But life will get boring if your world is just you. And so I'm looking out for mentees who, number one, they are hungry to succeed and they'll do whatever it takes to succeed ethically. That's most important. And then the next thing I'm looking at is, does this mentee has a service mindset? Like, you know, she wants to be successful, he wants to be successful so that he can serve, he can help people, he can make the world a better place. Because that's how I view the world as well. And again, I want to say there's nothing wrong if there's a person out there who says, I do not want to serve the world, I just want to serve myself. There's nothing wrong with that. But you see, when you come to mentoring, finding mentors in your life, you have to find someone that has similar values to you. That's most important, because there are a lot of successful people out there, but the way they are successful might not be aligned to your values. So you have to find a person who has similar values with you, then and that they're living the kind of life that you aspire. That would be somebody that you probably will want to seek out. And they might say no to you at first, but I always say that it's like dating. No, if you really like the person, you'll go out and try to woo that person. So you know, so show us that you're really sincere, you know, and you're not an opportunist. That you just want to ask for help, but that's it, right? You're not. If the person say no, you're just gonna move on. Then you're not really serious. I give you an example, and then we wrap up with your kindness question.
Yeah.
I remember many years ago, I signed up for a mentoring program where I'm seeking mentor, and I had 10 mentors to seek out for, and I can choose 3. So if the first one reject me, I still got another 2 to pick. You know what I did? I only choose 1. And they were like, Eric, you only chose 1. You might want to increase your chances by having 2 more. I say, no. If Ron Kaufman is not my mentor, then no, forget it. I'm done. I don't want anybody else. and because of that, I got selected. It was a big risk, but I sincerely wanted, because I love him. I love his values. I love the way he shows up in this world. And that's exactly how I want to do it. So sometimes you need to really go all out and just seek out that one mentor in your life, and not just be an opportunity and try to look for everybody else to teach you, but they might not be aligned to your values. Yeah, because ultimately it's a relationship. Okay, last question, kindness. Wow, I've never been asked that question before. Is kindness important? I remember there was a very nice, inspiring quote. Like, if you have a choice to be right or to be kind, always choose kindness. And your question is kindness extremely important in this world?
Yes, especially if you are somebody who is, maybe if you want to advise to somebody who is in the sales industry also. The reason being is that a lot of times I've never known a mentor who has an intention to tell you that, hey, you know, I'm going to screw your ass. But the thing is that it's because in the past, maybe they have a lot more leniency, or they teach you something that has worked for them in the past. So as a result, when they impart this method to you, it might not, as what you say, it might not align with your values, that's 1. And 2, it could potentially be a trouble in the future. It's because maybe well, in the past they can do it, they have the leniency to do that. But right now, you can't. I mean, if you can ask anybody who is in the banking industry, financial industry, they will tell you is that there's a lot more regulation over the years. So this is something that I feel is an important character that need to be.
You know what? Let's search the definition, that like the proper definition of kindness.
Sure.
Right? And then it makes it easier for us to, because we use the word kindness a lot, but I mean, we never really understand what kindness is. So kindness is being friendly, being generous, and being considerate.
Sure.
Okay. So, well, again, you see, it gives me 3 words. I would say that kindness is not the only thing that you need to be successful in this world.
Yep.
Right? You need real skills. You need to be valuable. In fact, I would modify that to say that I think what's the most important thing that you need to have to be successful in this world is, I think, number 1, you need to have empathy. Yeah. Because ultimately, right, if you think about it, a lot of the very successful entrepreneurs are successful because they're solving very big problems in the world. People always ask me, like, Eric, I want to start a business, but I have no idea what business to start. I say, you're asking the wrong question. You should not be asking what business you want to start. You should be asking what problem you want to solve and for who. And whoever can solve the biggest problem, you'll be rewarded with big ROI, right? So Facebook solved a very big problem, right? He connected the world together. Alibaba solved a big problem for all the small business enterprise. He helps the small businesses in China do business with the rest of the world. He's creating so much value. That's why he's being rewarded by being a multi-billionaire. Now, but for you to be able to solve problems, you need to first be clear about what problems people have. That's where empathy comes in. That if you are constantly inward facing only, then you're going to be very disconnected to what the problems that people are facing around the world. So I think empathy is more important than kindness. I think with empathy, you would know exactly what problems out there that you can solve. Empathy will also allow you to have a human connection with the people that you're trying to help. Empathy will also allow you to be more forgiving to your enemies because you will empathize why they do what they do. And that actually makes you kind, makes you generous. So I think we all need two things. We need self-awareness, that's inward. And then from the outwards perspective, we need empathy. I feel that these are the two most important qualities that anybody need to be successful in everything that they do. Self-awareness so that they can develop themselves in a way that allow them to serve, right? And then empathy gives you the direction of who you want to serve and what you want to do in this world. So I feel that would be the two most important things that you need in this world.
All right. Okay, just to let you guys know, Eric actually will be having his own show later at 9 p.m.
Yes, that's
on
why we need to
Facebook
get
Live.
ready. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So as what he mentioned, I might come up with a part 2 for this, and also it's because we keep on learning also. So this is okay. So just to validate what Eric says, actually, I kind of agree because what he says actually aligns with the perspective is that don't love your product, love your customer. Because if you love your customer, you will deliver a product that they will buy. That's one. And I can actually agree with how he actually can align with how he can meet your idol. In case you guys don't know, I actually met Eric through his PA at that time when I was in a networking event. I created an article that actually involved his interview with Grayson Chu of Legacy. So as a result, I actually put it in. I just happened to met his PA at that time is because I hijacked the entire meetup. It's because they were talking about Indonesia. So I'm the best person to tell them, and none of them are Indonesians. So as a result, when I told her about it, that is how I actually get in contact with Eric. And yeah, we've been in touch ever since he's in Indonesia. All right, so this is actually the end of Global Citizens episode 30. So do watch Eric's shows later. It's on his Facebook.
Yeah, if you guys want, you guys can. If you love this interview and you want to kind of have a deeper conversation with me about the questions that Calvin had asked, the best way to reach me will be Instagram. So you can look for me. My handle is Eric Goes Global. ERIC Goes GOES. Global GLOBAL. And please let me know that you got to know me from Calvin, so that I'll know I know what to say to you.
It's actually in the description box. I also link Eric's LinkedIn and even his YouTube channel. It's in there.
Thank you so much. And Facebook if you can. Thank you.
Yeah, this will be on your Facebook later. So I've already tagged in with your Facebook page. All right. So that's the end of Global Citizens. So I'll see you later for your own show, buddy. See ya.
Bye.